Florida Senator Marco Rubio, Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, can you add to that debate that is happening right now? Because we've heard Jen Psaki and President Biden himself say, in the face of these rising prices, and all those oil companies who say, hey, we want to increase production, we want to turn the Keystone XL pipeline on, and they continue to say, hey, well, there's 9,000 leases untapped out there. They're welcome to increase production. What is your response to that?
You know, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit more cynical than I used to be, being around here for a while now, but I was watching this because I was ready to come on the air. I've never seen such a level of disingenuity on the part of somebody. I mean, to be able to say that with a straight face, first of all, not every lease that's approved. Companies apply for all kinds of leases. Then they make the determination, well, that area is more productive. It makes sense to expense it. Others may not, may not make as much sense. You've also got a bunch of these places tied up in litigation. And then you've got an unfriendly administration. You have an administration that has made very, very clear that it wants America to produce less natural gas and less oil and to become greener. That has been a fundamental fact. And so who is going to risk capital under an administration whose entire administrative power is focused on making it harder than ever to explore and produce fossil fuels like oil and natural gas? They're not going to do it. And that's what they're not recognizing. And they keep pointing back. That's just a talking point and a way to spin it because it's a complicated industry, but it's just not true. The fact of the matter is today we are producing 1.2 million barrels of oil less a day than we were in 2019. If we just got half of that back, it more than makes up for whatever we were getting from Russia, and it would help lower prices, and it would have an immediate impact, by the way, on oil prices. If the president were to announce America's going hard on this, I'm going to start waving a bunch of red tape and fight through it, it would have an immediate impact, not a huge, but it would have an impact because the markets, the futures markets would say America's going to be ramping up production because OPEC won't.
Yeah, a lot of the senators, John Roberts here, is about sending signals. And I'm wondering, what sense does it make to restrict the importation of North American oil by not building new pipelines and restrict the production of domestic oil while at the same time thinking about having conversations with Iran about getting some oil from them, and then going down the Maduro route again to get Venezuelan oil?
Well, first of all, it makes no sense, because if you're a barrel of oil from Iran or Venezuela or Russia or anywhere else is no less damaging to the climate than a barrel of oil from America. The only difference between a barrel of oil from America and those places is we get the money and we get the jobs. But the second point you've raised is, you know, this Iran deal would do nothing for oil. The markets have already priced in an expectation that a deal is going to happen. So that discount's already in there for the most part. And Venezuela barely produces any oil. This is not Venezuela from 15 years ago. This is a corrupt, decrepit industry that produces less than 700,000 barrels of oil a day. Almost all of it goes to China because they pay the loans they owe to China. They have to pay it with oil. And 10% of it, the remainder, goes to Cuba for free in exchange for fake doctors. So that they don't have any oil to send us, even if they wanted to, and they can't ramp up production because their machines are outdated, their engineers have left the country, and their industry has become a decrepit mess run by incompetence. It's become a personal piggy bank for a narco dictator in Venezuela who is, you know, very close to Iran and Russia and China, but not the United States.
Senator, so then what happens? Because there's almost just this brazen admission by this White House that they don't plan to increase oil production here at home. As you keep hearing, it's up to those that are sitting on those leases to tap into them and raise production. And this continued push for a transition to green energy. I don't have to remind you, Senator, I know you know the facts involved with electric vehicles, but I mean, you're looking at 61% of electricity generation from fossil fuels, okay? So it's going to take fossil fuels to power those EVs. You're looking at the biggest lithium producers in the world, of which in the top 3 is China. So in this push, you're pushing reliance on China, and also in the middle of a moment where we know that Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, 65% of the country. They're pushing for them to get into vehicles that on average new cost $60,000 each.
Yeah, so the problem the administration has is they know the answer to this question. They know what the right decision is, but they can't make it because it means going to war with a radical left, and they don't want to do it. And because they're committed to the Green New Deal and they're committed to all this radicalism. And if you ask the people, the radicals, you know, like John Kerry and others on this issue, that for them they have this religious adherence to this notion, they don't have a problem with gas being $5 or $6 a gallon because they think all that's going to do is push more people into renewables. It's going to in essence, it's going to lead to less people driving, more mass transit. That's the argument you're going to hear from them. It's okay if they may not say it publicly, but it's okay if gas prices are more expensive, because that means more Americans will have to use trains and buses. Less people will be driving. More people will be looking for electric vehicles. But you're right about the electric vehicle. You got to generate the power for it, number one. And number two is the batteries. Those batteries depend on basic minerals, earth minerals that we don't produce enough of in the United States. You'd have to get those from China as well. Here's my last point. This dearth of this lack of availability around the world and the global availability of oil is not good for the environment. Because what happens for developing countries that don't have access to oil and natural gas is they rely on coal. And coal emits a lot more carbon than oil or natural gas does. And that's what they're forced to do, because they're not going to starve or freeze to death to make John Kerry happy.